Hi everyone, I'm Hariraj, CEO at NWORX. NWORX is a software platform that elevates the functional and leadership productivity of working professionals worldwide. NWORX is also a creator platform that enables every expert and organization that offers leadership or professional development to create and implement their solution. Today, we are here as part of the expert series on Leadership Studio, a series of sessions that I anchor to explore diverse set of topics in human performance, leadership development, and psychology. Today, the topic that we have is, do all leadership development programs fail? And why do they fail? And I'm very excited today because we have with us Walter, who's an expert in this space, in the space of leadership development. To give you a quick intro on Walter, Walter is the founder, head coach, and training director at EU Soft Skills. For the past 10 years or so, he has been working with entrepreneurs and senior executives who are passionate about achieving excellence. Prior to that, he was an executive coach at the Richmond Group, and before that, he was a CHRO at Mitsubishi Electric Corporation, where he successfully managed transition and cultural changes across several geographies. So he has multiple certifications and credentials in the space of leadership development space. I have spent several hours with Walter exchanging notes on leadership development purely from a practitioner standpoint. So I'm really excited to have him on the expert series here. Welcome, Walter.
Thank you, Hari. Thank you for having me here.
So today we really want to get cracking with what I would think of as a provocative topic. Do most leadership development programs fail? And if so, why? That's really what we are getting started with. So I'm going to just request Walter to just give us a few opening remarks around it.
I speak with a lot of companies, and I have spoken over the last 10 years, CHRO positions and CEOs, etc. And there's something that I heard and keep hearing all the time is that people say, we started a leadership initiative, a leadership training, leadership development. It's not really working. It doesn't bring the fruit. Well, is it true? Do they fail? Do they all fail? Are there some that work, that bring success? And what is the difference between the ones that work and the ones that don't work? And it's a working principle and a coaching and teaching principle of mine that I always look at the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5% that work excellently, and then I try to model what they are doing different, number one, differently from the others, and number two, what of this, let's call it a code, I call it a code of excellence, what of this code can be transferred to other cases.
Very interesting. So really we get started with an indication that there is a code which you can find in a small percentage of programs that excel in this space. So it's not true that all programs fail, but there is at least a small subset of programs that excel in the space.
Yes, I mean, when we say a program has failed, it means we don't get the expected result. That can have two reasons. One reason is that we were not clear of what we expect. And the other could be that we don't get the results because we chose the wrong method, or there is a lack of transfer.
So brilliant, because it does speak to two very pertinent points. One, it speaks to the first requirement, which is clarity on the goal, clarity on results that you are setting out to achieve. I absolutely agree with you that even in my experience, many programs fail even before they start, because when you do not have clarity on the requirements, you don't have the permission or alignment, you could look at it both ways, from the stakeholders on what those requirements are, and they align with it.
Speaking about the measurables, outcomes, I always encourage my people I work with to be as specific as possible about the outcome. However, there is a caveat in it. When we nowadays, especially in so-called modern new work tech companies, we have this fascination with OKRs and KPIs, there is a danger in over-specifying. People who shall achieve the targets need to learn to be empowered on the way to achieve these targets. So there is a necessity to have, number one, if we go into a leadership development program with the outset, the starting idea, how to communicate, how to give feedback, that brings a lot of effective results to many of the people. If we focus for the outcomes too much on specific outcomes, then there is a danger that people do not have enough opportunity to learn along the way, to develop their skills, because they may have different previous knowledge and experience. They may have different learning preferences. And the important thing, this is what I believe that all programs, all the successful programs have, is they start from a common purpose. And the common purpose usually is a business case.
So you spoke about business purpose. You spoke about a reinforcing challenge. You also spoke about the underlying intent, establishing a company culture. That's a magical combination that you can start with, which really brings in clarity. Now, the absence of something like this is real serious challenge when some of these larger programs start. But in your experience, what's missing when we are speaking about making programs a success?
The programs that succeed or the programs that fail, they lack also transfer. They lack the transfer from what people learn during the learning sessions into the life and work situation. And we found a solution for that because we used external trainers who were with us in the whole process. And these internal trainers had very, very good coaching credentials and even mediation. When we finished the learning module, we tasked people to select 3 topics out of the last module. So in the day-to-day work, we asked people, choose 3 things that you want to apply in the day-to-day work. They were to a certain kind self-directed. Nowadays you would call them peer groups or masterminds. And we assigned some of these groups to one of our external coaches. And they had regular meetings. They came into the company in approximately about once a week or once over 2 weeks, sat down with the teams and tracked their progress and asked them, where are you stuck? When I started more intensely to work with online remote coaching and training, the first thing I was investigating is, can I find an app that helps me to transfer what people have learned into action? Can I find an app that has this interactivity so that people can report, and when they think they need my support, they can push a red button. When I think they could do with some support, I give them a slight nudge. In an ideal world, what I would like to see, and I know that by technology it's possible nowadays, what I would see now.
What are some common mistakes that organizations or people who are rolling out these leadership development programs commit while designing the programs?
I think the ultimate goal of leadership is to develop something that I would call the unconscious competence of leaders. How do I conduct a feedback meeting? How do you need to embody it, and you need to grow into the state. And this is something that the good concepts do. They do not just teach something that goes conscious brain, they also allow people to make journeys that help them to grow unconsciously. There are programs that are designed to address all senses and help people to change a state and get people ready for a transformative state. And I believe that is also something where we can work miracles by the combination of good knowledge, good concepts and technology. Imagine what you can do when you put virtual reality in the right space, in the right spot for creating an experience. This is our final target.
No, I agree with you. I think there is so much potential. I think when we can reimagine solutions, because in the past we had the understanding of what makes a great design, but today with technology, it just completely opens up new vista in terms of how to how to actually realize, how to bring to reality some of those designs. So, absolutely agree with you on that. I think even in my own experience, I have seen organizations overlooking the context, very mistaken assumptions around the fact that one size would fit all. Organizations, when they create programs that overlook the context, not keeping the mindset of the leaders in place. Many of those concepts have an underlying principle. I always feel the transition from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence is slightly the easier transition. I think programs fail in the transition from that conscious incompetence to conscious competence, and then from conscious competence to unconscious competence. Those two transitions are hard to execute, hard to stay with, and that has been a real struggle for.
There's a factor of application and every day learning a little bit more. Adaptability is a key thing. Optimism, empathy. I believe big buzzword since 2002, I think, is agile. Let's be agile. But I know, we all know agile doesn't work if people don't feel safe in the environment. People need the safety to contribute without being ridiculed. People need the safety to have a different opinion without being punished. These are competencies that grow in people that we can foster with an ongoing training concept, with an ongoing training philosophy.
I think the kind of attributes, the kind of element, you recounted a few very powerful ones, like empathy, adaptability, optimism, agility in general. I think these are absolute must-have abilities, capabilities, attributes, whatever we want to call it. A lot of the time we call them soft attributes. For the longest period, I couldn't understand why we even think of them as call them soft attributes. But the point is, these are very central, especially in today's world, where the change is at an all-time high, uncertainty is at an all-time high. People need to adapt. And I think a lot of the time we get caught in the novel concept I speak about these days, because I hear quite often, is in the realm of goal setting, we have these OKR models. Not a week goes by wherein I don't have a conversation with a senior business executive or a HR head wherein the other party's expectation is that, look, I have heard of this thing called OKR. Sounds like, or I'm being told that will solve my performance issues, because if I set OKRs, things will all get better. And it takes a bit of a conversation for me to really be able to help that person understand that it is yet another framework which still requires the same abilities of adaptability or empathy or optimism or agility to be in there for it to work. The hard work is not in adopting the OKR framework or using an OKR tool, but hard work is really in helping the human adapt to these or adopt these attributes, and being able to have a level of unconscious competence in demonstrating these over and over again as the situations demand. If you have that, you can give them an OKR framework and they will be brilliant at it. They don't have it. You can give them an OKR framework and an OKR product, and it's still going to be a struggle, even more so. So no, it's a great point. And I think I want to now shift gears a bit of this conversation, Walter. I want to really just start to think in terms of the HR leader, organizations who are custodians of setting the expectation, or rather managing the expectations around leadership readiness, ensuring that they have the right quality of management talent that can support the growth of their organization. What are the things that HR leaders and HR heads struggle with when it comes to setting up and implementing leadership development programs and initiatives at their respective enterprises?
I'm not a great fan of the so-called Ulrich model, where you have the business partners in the business and the centers of competence outside. I think that's unfortunately creating more and more silos, And of course, it's also something that only works in corporates. If you have a small, medium-sized company, you cannot have an HR person here and 2 or 3, or then you start buying your support from the outside. But you don't have the role where you want it to be at the heart of the people. Then it was always this question, how do we get a seat at the board table? And of course, you see it in the last 2 years, it was COVID. We see so many events when HR people say, that was really our moment to shine. That was really when we could show that how much we are needed. But in the end, they were again degraded to the role of the company nurse, to the role of the social counselor. Whenever something happens, we get HR to heal the wounds, and we get HR to make policies, and we get HR to make compliance. So I think the point for HR is when it comes to real influence. I think a big point is that HR needs more influence on making the decision of what kind of leadership development does the company need. We offer also a diagnostic system. That's our business model. And I think this is where HR really needs to get their teeth in. They need to deliver good diagnostics, and based on the diagnostics, in a compelling manner, convince the C-level that what kind of change, what kind of program is needed, that we have to give them information and to give them also the resilience to do so.
I agree with all of the 3 big elements that you spoke of. You spoke of influence. HR must have the influence to be able to shape the thinking. Second, to have very independent, informed views. I agree with you that there is always a new thing that is coming up. There is always a new hype that's taking the kind of dominating the sound waves. And having independent, informed views is such a critical element to position yourself right as an HR professional or HR leader with the business executives. And third is, of course, being able to bring out the options to address the problems that there is an alignment on or there is a buy-in on, and being able to build that confidence with some really good measurement that goes back to reporting on things. What can an HR leader do to maximize the odds of success of a leadership development within their organization? So what are certain elements that you would want HR leaders and HR professionals to look at when they look at maximizing the odds of success for leadership development?
Well, that's a great question. I look into what I learned in 30 years in HR, but also what I'm learning now working with HR people. I think there is an important element is that, as you know, HR used to have a lot of legal power. So HR in a certain year could say, you can't do that because that's against compliance rules. In Germany, I remember for many years, HR was hated by C-level because HR told the C-level or what they could not do because they would get in trouble with the unions. The point is, I think that HR has to apply and perhaps has to learn and apply marketing and sales skills. You know, in HR we have to sell ideas. We have to win support for ideas. And because it's HR, it's not easy because everybody believes he knows everything about people management. It grows naturally, or even worse, you're either a born leader or you're not a leader. That's the worst you can hear. I think HR needs to develop a good idea, but also when you do this marketing and sales, the first thing is, as HR, you need to have a good communication to your internal clients. Speak to the people in production. Speak to the people in logistics. Speak to the people in IT. Speak to the people in sales. Speak to the people in quality control, wherever. You know, the ideal way is when you ask somebody about a change, the slogan is a achieve X without Y. It's not easy. It needs persistence. I think for HR itself, they need a lot of resilience, a lot of optimism. They need to be the embodiment of emotional intelligence in the organization. Then they can lead by example. And then they can listen to their internal clients, come up with ideas, win support.
Couldn't agree with you more. I think you covered some fantastic attributes for any HR professional to take note around. And this is really coming from someone who has been in the HR profession at the highest level for a long time. I think all of these key attributes, you started with the whole sales and marketing abilities of the HR professional, and you kind of took us to thinking about the whole embodiment of emotional intelligence in the company, having the right elements around resilience, patience, optimism. This is really critical. And this is where I think I also feel that to be an effective HR leader, it's one of the most challenging professional jobs out there are in this field, just because of the nature of business and then where the world is going. Because everything is really now about people and technology. Everything else is fading into the background. And HR leaders absolutely have the most exciting, yet probably the most enviable job of bringing it all together in service of business success and highest ideals of aspiration for the individuals. This is fantastic, Walter. Thanks a lot for covering a wide span of issues and stating your opinions so very candidly. We can even have a follow-up conversation. I think if the next set of provocative questions
and of course, everyone
studio.
can connect to me as well. Yes,
Absolutely. Please feel free to look up Walter. He's active on LinkedIn, so he'll be happy to answer things directly as well.